to Badger Castle Creations. Today I'm going to be showing you how I made this junk hut from assorted materials, so stay tuned. To start with, I made a foundation from a scrap piece of foam board. Cutting it into even squares, I used a miniature to check the scale, and then I assembled the foundation with some hot glue and some toothpicks to reinforce it. I initially looked for pieces of junk in my scrap box and found some small suitable pieces, but not enough that I needed. It's always worth keeping your scraps from past projects to use for junk and debris in the future. Starting with some corrugated foam, I then cut up a bunch of craft sticks to use for wooden planks. I assembled a frame around the doorway and then started adding planks randomly around the piece. I then used some corrugated foil that you can get from food containers. I got a pack of 10 for £1, so it's a fairly inexpensive material. I like working with this material because it's very malleable and easy to bend into shape. I added some wooden planks and started assembling the roof. For the back, I used this piece of mesh wire that I got from a bird feeder. After gluing it in place, I covered the bottom half with some planks and corrugated metal. I added this piece of knitting mesh on the side for some variety. I then bent the top portion of the mesh wire over the roof and cut away the excess. I added a scrap piece of hair curler for some more variation, and then continued with the roof. I used some more planks to build a rough frame, and then started covering the gaps with corrugated metal. I covered the rest of the roof with small planks of wood to make it look like it'd been repaired, and then wedged some corrugated foam in the last little gap, and added one last piece of corrugated metal to finish the look. At this stage, I decided to add some floorboards, which in hindsight I should have done before assembling the roof, but it is what it is. Lastly, I double checked that a miniature would still fit inside. I then went around with a craft knife and a wire brush to rough up the wood and give it some texture, and then it was on to painting. I kept the painting pretty simple. I started by basing the whole piece in brown. I then mixed together some green and yellow with brown and roughly stippled that over the piece to give it some color variation. I then went over the parts that were supposed to be metal with a rust color, and then dry brushed gunmetal over the foam and plastic parts. Now came my favorite part. The advantage of using real wood and metal meant that I could scrape away at the paint to reveal the material underneath. While this might not look entirely realistic, I think that it gives a very striking effect, and I think that it looks more like real metal than metallic paints do. Once I was done weathering the piece, I went back over with some rust and gunmetal until I was happy with the overall balance. And with that, we were done. So there we have one run-down junk hut for your little survivor to hunker down in. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.